So the plan for today is I'm looking at putting the Airlift Performance Universal airbag system on the 260Z. Obviously, you know, they don't make a kit for this car, so this is a custom fabrication, and I'm going to go through the measurements to determine which kit will work best for my stroke length on my suspension and the ride height that I want. So this is the Airlift kits that they have available for the Universal Strut kit. There's several different stroke lengths and load capacities. So I'm going to go through and use one of these two kits. One's a 5 7/8 stroke length, and the other one's 4 3/8 stroke length. So I'm going to take some measurements and figure out which one's going to work best for my application.
Alright, so here's what I'm doing. I'm going over the rear setup for the 1974 Datsun 260Z that I'm building. We're going to use the Airlift Performance 75563 Universal Strut kit. So what I've done is I've measured the distance from where the stock strut mounts to the chassis, which is this black line here, to the top edge of the lower hub casting where the stock strut presses in. That distance on the stock strut, with it completely bottomed out, you remove the coil spring and let it bottom out all the way, is 18 inches. So with the Airlift Performance Strut kit, I'm targeting the mid-stroke for my ride height. So I want my ride height to be at 26 inches from the ground to the fender lip, which gives me some decent clearance for normal driving, and then I can go either way from there. The stock Airlift Performance Strut has basically a 6-inch stroke on it, so mid-stroke, my strut overall length will be 17 inches. That includes the top adapter plate and the adapter for the bottom to press into the stock hub casting. Then from there, maximum stroke will be 20 inches, so my overall length from basically the casting to the top will be 20 inches, which gives me a 29-inch fender height from ground to fender. And then the minimum stroke will be 14 inches, and that gives me 23 inches fender height to the ground, which puts me somewhere in the 3 to 4 inch range for clearance on the rockers to the ground. So it's pretty low, probably not sitting all the way on the ground, but it'll be close. So I'm going to go do that. You can see the setup here that I have. I just have it mocked up. So the bottom of the strut mounts in the stock casting here. I've removed the stock strut, cut the spot welds, and then split basically the leftover strut piece and pressed it out of there. It was in there pretty good and tight, so it was really hard to get out. But I'm going to make an adapter to adapt the strut to that, press it back in, weld it in place again. And then you can see here's the airbag and the strut top. The airbag slides over top of the strut. It has an O-ring seal at the bottom, and then there's a rubber bushing isolator at the top that also seals it. So once that's all together, that'll go in the car once I get the adapters. I've drawn the adapter pieces up in SolidWorks, so I'll show you those next.
Alright, so here's the adapters in SolidWorks that I've drawn up for the rear strut mounting. So this is the lower strut mounting. The top portion will fit over the Airlift Performance Strut. It's not a press fit, but it's a pretty close fit. So it'll slide over top of the strut and then get welded around the top here. The window in the strut here is for the adjuster to go through, so you slide this over, weld it in place, and then screw in the adjuster here to adjust your dampening settings. And then the bottom section is designed to press fit into the stock casting of the rear hub. It'll get pressed in and then spot welded around the bottom and welded around the top as well to make sure it's in place and stays there. Just to have a look at the cross section of it, we'll display it here, do a section view and look at it this way so you can see a section. So you can see there's pretty good thickness all the way down through the section, a little bit thicker at the bottom. There's a cutout for the window. So that is the rear lower adapter. Then we'll switch to the flat strut mount on the top. So you can see this is the upper strut mount. I have the studs here that mount it to the chassis. They press in from the bottom in their counterboard so that they're flush on the bottom and don't make any contact with the top of the strut. the black pieces in the middle are the plastic thrust bearings that Airlift Performance provides. What I've done on this is I've actually counterbored the top, or made a recess in the top so that the upper bushing fits in the top, because I didn't want to cut a clearance hole that big in my strut housing in the car. So this top surface here will actually fit flush up against the bottom of the strut housing in the car, and then that way there's no contact with this upper bushing. So and we'll just do a quick section view of that as well. So that way you can see the cross section of it. So got the gray part is the actual steel material of the upper strut mount, the black bushings in the center for the upper strut thrust bearings, and then the studs there you can see. So that's the two parts that I designed to mount the universal strut kit in the Datsun 260Z.